it's really, it's cutting back onto attacking the staff, and I agree that has nothing to do with the question that was asked.
I have a question then, unless somebody else has one.
I do. I'm just curious. One of the main reasons we get here is to figure out, you know, people are asking for support for one or the other. And I listened to you guys' reasons as far as not announcing your undersheriff, or do you guys have any idea when you're going to do that? Because that, I mean, that's, all of us have to base an opinion off of something, and we usually like to know as much of the details as we can before we base an opinion. So, you have any idea when you're going to do that?
Yes, that would be after a primary.
Okay.
And to answer, I think I already answered your question.
Yeah, yeah, you did. But I mean, do we have any time frame, like, you know, a couple months towards the end, towards when crunch time? I mean, because reason for us, I think, as deputies here, we have more invested as far as other police guilds or anything else as far as what's going to happen with us. So, like, we really want to know who we're going to be working for. And so that's why I'm asking.
Oh, it's completely legitimate. You need to know all those things. And I would say I'm not doing it now simply because I don't feel like we're at a stage where I want to announce everything and put everyone out there to the full extent. If for some reason I didn't make it through a primary, we forego that whole problem. But once we do make it through it, absolutely that information is out there.
Of course, we have people out in the community saying they're going to be one of these candidates under sheriff, and he's announcing it, so I don't know if he's doing that on his own initiative or if he's been licensed to do that or not.
Really? Who's that?
Deputy Stu Smith is going to be on.
Bill, do you have a time frame when you're going to make a decision in that regard, or have you already made a decision that you're going to stick with the current undersheriff?
I'm going to stick with my current undersheriff. He's solving a lot of my problems I'm having in the jail. He's up there with those people every day. The undersheriff position is dedicated to about 30% to the Bureau of Law Enforcement Investigative Services. Chief Chadwick runs this bureau. The undersheriff has broader responsibilities for budget, for corrections, for emergency management, for administration and support, all the varied functions that we do at the sheriff's office. Law enforcement is just one of our important responsibilities, but we have many others, and that's where he's involved. Chief Chadwick, I fully anticipate retaining him, keeping him in his current position, and I'm very, very pleased with the leadership that he's providing in that role.
Quick follow-up question. For all, maybe it's just me, I might be the only dumb one in the room that doesn't follow politics. When's the primary?
August 16th.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
I can agree with that.
I have a question for Bob and Steve. It seems like so much of the hurdles that we face are due to politics that we face with the executive's office or the county council, and kind of at the mercy of what they will approve and what they'll support us on. I think we've seen that Bill does a good job working with them, educating them, informing them. We can't just make a hammer decision saying this is where we're going to go forward. How are you planning on working the political aspect of it, from the political side, not just the law enforcement side, but working with the political side of the bureaucracy that we have to deal with that?
Well, I don't look at that as a political issue. I look at that, you're going to have a relationship with these people. And some of them are going to be good, some of them not so good. We have to let them know what it is we primarily need and then secondarily need. We're never going to get the secondary stuff, but we better push hard for the primary stuff. But the big point is they're going to approve it or not approve it. What has to happen is that everybody here understands fully what's going on in this process. What are we really trying to do? What are we pushing for? What are we advocating for? And what is actually occurring? What are we not getting? What are we actually going to get? I think the transparency is what's really important in that regard. I'll have relationships with these people because they're people I'm going to work with the same way I work with all of you. I don't have any desire to make it a political relationship, just this is your function, this is my function, how are we going to get through this? And if I think something really screwy is going on, as most of you know, I'm not going to stand for stuff that's not above board. I will absolutely let you guys all know about it, but more importantly, the whole public know about it. This is what's happening here. The county has decided to divert $20-some million a year jail tax to current operations, and the money that used to come out of the general fund is now being used who knows where. I think this is information you as a public want to know, because you okayed a jail tax. Money's not actually going
And
to
that's-
support the jail.
And that's not wholly accurate, I'd be happy to respond to that.
Yeah.
If that was the question,
Yes,
but
if that
again,
was the
as you
question.
reminded us before, that wasn't the question, so.
Yeah, to respond to your question, I have, I think, a decent relationship with every one of the county council people. I've actually, the guild, and I've worked on their campaigns, and even the ones that I didn't work on the campaigns, I communicate, I go to almost every single county council meeting that I can attend, and I've stood up and advocated for our guild, our specific issues. I've stood up before the county council and advocated for things completely unrelated to law enforcement. And unfortunately, politics is part of this position. It is an elected position, but the primary responsibility is to the public. But you have to have good working relationships with the council. The executive is going to change. It isn't going to be Pete Cronin. Whether or not he's a county council person is yet to be seen. But I've met with each one of the county council candidates, Tom Anderson, and she's our senator, Doug Erickson, and they're all decent people. They all got different philosophies about how they want to run things, but yeah, I'll work with each one of them.
They're running for county executive, not county council.
County executive, thank you. See, that's another one of those GOTN radio moments. County executive, yes.
I have a question for the sheriff. You mentioned earlier about the gang problem, and I recall an incident 5 to 6 years ago where we had a juvenile beaten quite severely by gangs, and you make it sound like this is some new phenomenon, and you've had a gang expert work for us for a significant amount of time, but haven't utilized his experiences and his expertise until recently. Why is it now an issue for you, and with everything else you talked about, until recently these haven't been addressed?
Well, that's been an issue I've taken seriously for a long time. We've had our crime analyst, Spencer Cope, for the last 6 years working on gang issues, identifying gang members, relaying that information to the prosecutor's office so we can enhance prosecutions and hopefully not fast track or plead those most habitual cases, and we want to continue to do that. I think you're probably referring to the incident on 10 Mile Road, is that correct? Yeah, well that was an individual that was in the country illegally that was responsible for that beating. We found out that he was released into the community. That process of trying to deport him went on for years, and went on for over a year. I was in touch with our congressman's office. I put all kinds of pressure on it. So I do a lot of things to try to address problems such as gang issues. And we've made use of Deputy Linderman. We've had him go to every school district in the county.
We or he? I think he went. I think he was asked.
I sent him, and I authorized him, and I directed him, and I directed our staff. Somebody asked, what does our staff do? I set direction, they make sure it's executed, and he was sent to do that. People aren't free agents to go around deciding what they should and shouldn't do.
So he asked permission once he was contacted. You didn't direct him to do it. Is that what you're saying?
I directed a strategy for him to educate the schools and make use of his talents.
You didn't answer my question.
Okay, let's go to the next question, because we're just going in circles at this point. Let's take one more question and then,
I wanted to clarify something.
yeah.
Jack Lowe's is another candidate for executive. I haven't talked to him, so I haven't talked to all of them.
Okay, point taken. So we'll take one more question, because we kind of ran over on the time that we had discussed earlier. So we'll take one more question, and then we'll close out the forum portion for this evening.
I have one more question. I've heard a lot of the endorsements for the sheriff, the different agencies and stuff. I haven't heard of any of your guys' endorsements. Have you guys received endorsements from other labor groups or police entities or who has endorsed you that I wouldn't know?
Yeah, I've talked to the police agencies, and yeah, Bellingham decided to endorse Bill. The other agencies I've talked to, as far as I recall, they don't endorse people necessarily. They allow us to come in and talk to them. But the police agencies are the only people I've talked to about endorsements.
Yeah, to answer your question, to be perfectly clear, and I also clarified earlier, yeah, I talked to the police agencies. I didn't talk to Sumas, and I didn't talk to Everson, but I did talk to Ferndale and Linden and Bellingham Police, and I think all but
So, are there any endorsements at this point?
To answer your question, no.
I'd like to respond to that as well. I've spoken to the Bellingham Police Guild. I was endorsed by them. I spoke to the Linden Police, Teamsters 231, and the units individually and separately that they represent in Blaine, Linden, and Everson.